is Ashana Larsen with Falzer Under 5, a microdose of music and purpose. Today I'm with singer-songwriter Every Heard. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Hi, thank you for having me, Ashana.
When I asked you to be my guest on the first podcast, I didn't realize we were sharing a similar goal. Your mission to promote community and well-being through the performing arts. That's the Falzer Club mission too, with a sprinkle of activism. You have been boldly open about your mental health challenges, and you've made many people feel understood and less lonely by openly speaking about depression and suicide. How did music help turn things around for you?
Oh, so much. Yeah, I'm sorry. I don't I don't even know where to begin. I felt for a long time as though I did not know how to get people to understand what I was thinking and feeling. And when it started to come out in the form of song and lyrics, people would come up to me after I had sang and tell me that I was singing about them and their lives and their experiences. And then I began to feel like, okay, music is what pulls the words together and helps people connect to what I want them to actually feel. I used to say something to my mom when I was a little kid that I had things inside of me that I wish that I could give them to her to eat, and then she could have them and eat them and know what I had inside of me. And I feel like music is that special thing that I've been able to find that helps people connect that way.
That's so beautiful. I was thinking, it's so often we send kids to school, but we're never on the curriculum is how to understand yourself and your feelings and your emotions. And so there is a way that we sort of like push down everything we feel. And it's beautiful to think that music is a way to open that.
I agree so much, just from the standpoint of someone who worked in the therapy community. I went to a very expensive education for how to help people communicate. I worked with people with all sorts of language or articulation or cognitive deficits, and just the basics of expressing their needs, getting their thoughts addressed by other people. And no matter how I could train them in the tools that neurotypical people have, it's always a two-way street. And the listener also has to be receptive to receiving the messages. And I didn't have any power over that.
Yeah, sometimes we can control ourselves, but we can never control other people.
Very much so. It's just that music doesn't require an answer. You can put out a song that doesn't necessarily have a resolution, but it can help people commiserate. It can help people find each other and say, yeah, I'm like that too, or I have experienced that too. And that's how community starts, I believe, is through those commonalities, that common ground of how to connect with one another, and that's how we begin to find the people who help us.
And somehow we have such a visceral reaction to music that sometimes it's like a pathway for greater understanding.
Oh, yeah, very, very much so. I found it the most interesting in some of the music that my father brought into my life, our old country tunes, say like an old Patsy Cline song that is just so heartbreaking if you read the lyrics on the page. And then you hear it with a big 50s band, and they're playing this upbeat dance song that just, it's incredible how you can get people on so many levels at the same time. Oh, I just think it's almost like a Trojan horse, of like, oh, I'll pull you in with this catchy music, and then, oh wait, but if you actually pay attention here, you'll get a message that maybe it didn't completely reflect what you thought you were supposed to feel when you heard the upbeat sound. And sometimes music can sound exactly like what it's saying, and then sometimes it's like that, where it can pull you in and then give you a message that you weren't expecting. I've experienced that with my own music as well, of like writing a song and thinking, oh, well, that's pretty, and then sitting down and going, oh my God, this is like about my depression. This is about my anxiety.
You'd mentioned about, as a Korean American, that you grew up listening to your father's classic country and then your mother's Korean ballads. How did those influences show up in your own music?
Oh, so I've mentioned my father's classic country music. It's just catchy, and it's easy to pick up a guitar and start to play those chords, especially as an adult learner who was self-taught. It really took some, oh, uh, I didn't have confidence initially, so that really helped me start just playing what was familiar. And then my mother's music, on the other hand, a lot of the traditional pansori music is just raw vocals on top of visceral drumming, just a beat going in the background. That it's it's a way to express part of the cultural heritage I feel for being Korean, that I think a lot of second generation, however many generation immigrant children here in the United States, we want to feel connected back to our motherlands, fatherlands, that it's so beautiful to come from a culture that has survived and endured war and occupation, that we created this form of music that has endured over the ages and really ties us together, reminds us of how precious our language and way of being, eating, living has been important to us to hold on to. So in that way, it's really beautiful, like my parents' marriage, to tie these things together and be able to take the very simple and the complex backgrounds and tie them together into something that can be touching, and also tap into a part of myself that feels like I'm giving my ancestors a voice still to be heard.
That's beautiful.
Thank
You, in your song Stay, you ask everyone to get through another day. If you had a magic wand, what is your wish for our future?
you. Our future. Um, so I have a funny notion whenever people ask me about that song, um, because it started one way and came to a place that's very different now. It started from a place of being very distraught and angry, and when I first started writing lyrics to it, they were directly addressing someone, saying that I didn't care what he wanted, that I just wanted to stay. And it was like, stay, like a dog, stay. And then it evolved because I didn't want to rush and write this angry song. I wanted to express the love behind what I was trying to say, that I wanted it to come out clear and sincere and genuine as an invitation that I really want to make this work, whatever it takes. And so as the song became something beautiful, the actual relationship that inspired it fell apart, and I came to realize that my life was becoming so much better than anything I had imagined. Um, that's kind of my wish for people, is that they can put aside what they're clinging to and just say, I want what's best for everyone, because really that's going to create a reality that's so much more beautiful than what they're imagining that's making them miserable. And that's what I saw in creating that song. And to extend that beyond myself, I eventually was volunteering at a center for people in recovery, and I had a young man approach me and say, "Oh, can I play with you? Can I bring my guitar and play with you?" And he heard that song and wanted to play it with me and wanted me to show him the chords. And it was a new step for that song when I sang, "I want you to stay just one more day," because he was in a place where I was told people were only 48 hours, maybe 1 week from like when they had been using last, that they were finally in sobriety, and there were high chances of them not making it from there. And it really touched my heart that he took to that song so strongly, and that it made me feel like it was much more important than any silly love song I had thought it was.
When you mentioned rush, right, not rushing, that resonated so strongly for me, because I think our whole society is in a rush. We're in a hurry, how to do things faster. And I think sometimes we're completely reactive instead of thoughtful. And right, maybe music, it's interesting, maybe music gives us that time to just slow down a little bit, right? We listen to a refrain and we come back. There's a little time to settle into those feelings.
Yeah. I have another song called Human Race, and I wrote it one day when I was still in a job where I was very miserable and wasn't sure how to get myself out of bed. It was really at a low point, and I just was like, well, if you can't get out of bed today, you can bring the guitar into bed and you can write a song about it. And I called it Human Race because it's about that idea of it being a rat race, life for human beings, where we are told to go to college and take out big loans, and then, oh, it's okay because you'll pay it back eventually because you'll have a job now. But what if you go through that whole process and then you're stuck? And at this day and age, we're not supposed to be indentured servants. We're supposed to be free. We're in Philadelphia, the place where the Declaration of Independence was signed. So I really struggled for a while about feeling worthy about how to take that step forward and embrace music as something important enough to get this message across for people to be able to express themselves fully, be able to reevaluate what they value. And maybe it's not what they thought they would value when they were 18, 19, 20 and signing agreements to do jobs that they didn't understand what that job would look like after graduation.
We start out with rushing. It's like our society teaches us that our value is what we can produce and money we can make. And then that becomes this little cycle that you make more and you try to get ahead, and then you're there, and then you're supposed to get a little further. And what we've forgotten is that, to sort of stop and slow down and question, what's our purpose? Or it's the difference between our goal being to be rich or to be happy. We forgot that the idea of being rich was we were trying to get happy. And instead we end up chasing something that's sort of, it's like spiraling down.
Oh, that's so well put, Ashana. That's yeah. I never see money as a form of happiness. And I realized the more money I was starting to make, the less I had the option to make choices that made me happy. I didn't even have time to stop and appreciate how I could spend money. I just really needed to stay in bed and write that song. And after I did, I realized that it was talking about how frustrated I was that it wasn't worth getting out of bed. So that's when I really started to seek help professionally and started a recovery journey of my own. And that forced me to surrender and stop everything, to start taking a look at how I could participate and bring my gifts into the world, into the community in such a way that I wouldn't feel guilty for walking away from. Being a therapist is a very important job. It's a very good job, and I respect everyone who does it. I just very simply came to a realization in my own life that I have specific gifts around music and art and kind of seeing how to connect the neurotypical and neuroatypical thinkers in such a way that we can all express ourselves freely and use creative mediums as a way to exchange information in a way that sometimes gets lost in words. I really appreciate slowing down because I think that's part of why, if there's a plan in the universe for why I wasn't learning how to play a guitar in my youth, then I found purpose in realizing that as somebody who went to school to learn how to adapt any skill learning for a different kind of brain, that my brain didn't learn music theory in a traditional linear way, that I saw it visually, I saw it without graphemes, I saw it in a way that broke it down with color and shapes and made it something to interact with. So being able to just take the time to practice is sometimes why people say it's too late once they're already an adult. They just say they can't. But I really believe that anyone can. It's just a matter of surrendering and humbling and taking the steps to do something over and over again. If you care about anything enough, you don't mind doing it over and over again because you have somewhere in your head you're trying to reach. And with music, it's beautiful because every song is another little destination to continue. For me, I was really lucky because the way that I began making music was I just had an original song arrive in my head, fully formed. And the moment that I wrote it, and I literally sat there with a chord chart, not knowing how to play an instrument, and wrote it on guitar. And then the moment it was finished, I said to myself, oh no, this means I am learning how to play a guitar now. Which was upsetting because I knew that it meant a lot of work was ahead of me. And at the same time, I said to myself, you cannot ask anyone to play a song that's inside of your head. They don't know what it sounds like. No matter how good they are, it will always be an approximation of what you want it to be. So I've been playing ever since.
Mm. I was just thinking, imagine if we all could just trust ourselves to like believe that instinct of where we need to go
Mhm.
and give ourselves permission to go there, right? The way you picked up that guitar. I think we get so stuck in like in trying to be typical. Like who is typical? I'm not sure that I know a typical person. Like we're all it's like the world is a giant bell curve and we're all on one side or the other of it.
it it definitely took me running into singer-songwriters personally, which I never did. I never did before I lived in Philly. I just like so many people, I just believed that was a gift that some people had, or they went to school and studied really hard to learn to do it, and those things were never going to be available to me. And then I ran into a singer-songwriter that I felt safe enough to confess. I said, I think I might be crazy. I don't tell anyone this, but I hallucinate music, like songs that don't exist. And he looked at me, Ashana, and said, well, how do you think that new music, like, how do you think composers make music? Like, yes, people absolutely hear music inside of their head. And it was such a beautiful epiphany that gave me permission to stop blocking it out or stop saying, oh no, I'm hallucinating, I'm crazy person.
Sometimes I feel as a species we're really lost in our priorities and the way we look at things. But you have given me so much hope today. In another interview, you said that your mother called you a magician, and I think she is right. It takes a magician to turn pain into beauty and connection, and you've really done that. Thank you so much for talking with me today.
Thank you, Ashana. That was my mother's attempt to say musician correctly.
Well, somehow there was an innate intuition, right, and a knowing that she had to use magician instead. So you are a musical magician.
Thank you.
We're going to end with a snippet from Every Heard's song, Stay.
This universe is a dark, lonesome space, and it takes a lifetime to learn your whole place. Well, you're always looking outside yourself, just be you. 'Cause I don't want nobody else. Who you have always wanted to be exactly who you are to me. No, baby, don't change. No, don't go away. I want you to stay one more day. I want you to stay one more day. And another one again tomorrow. And another one again tomorrow. And another one again tomorrow. Could you stay one more day?
This is Ashana with Falzer Under 5 with Every Heard, who will be performing at the Falzer Club on Friday, March 29th, along with Sarah Madden and Hannah Bug. For tickets, go to thefalzerclub.com.
Thank you so much for taking the time to do this. I appreciate you.
You're welcome. I appreciate you too.